This is Dr. Fastlane again. Guys, today I have brought you something so gorgeous your jaws will drop. This is a car, a new story. It's a love story, I would say. But I have gotten in love with this car when I saw it on the first sight. I just requested the owner that, hey sir, I'm going to really like to feature this car on my channel, and he was gracious enough to allow that. So long story short, let's go. Look at this. Behind this big garage is like a big cave inside. This is the entrance. And do you know the magic words for the entrance? Open sesame. It takes a minute to open a garage. It's so tall. The door is so tall. But here inside, oh my God, look at this. Look at this thing. This is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's 1926 Pierce Arrow. And I have not much idea about these cars, but I'm going to be talking to the owners. But sir, I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you. Who are you again?
I'm the owner of this car. Richard.
You are the owner of this car?
I am.
Oh, I apologize. I just got overwhelmed.
It's easy to do.
With the beauty of this creature. I mean, I don't even know what to say. But am I right? It's 1926.
That's correct. It's a 1926 Pierce Arrow Series 80 5-passenger sedan.
By the way, this is Mr. Richard, the owner of this gorgeous beast. And he has a lot more goodies to show us later on. But for now, let's just keep it down and focus on, because we don't want to be all over the place, because I'm so distracted right now, you have no idea how am I maintaining my focus. Sir, please tell me about this, and when did you acquire it, and what does it take to maintain such a beauty in such a condition, and what kind of condition it had when you got this, and how much work you have done to it?
I got this car about 7 or 8 years ago, and it had been partially restored at the time. The engine had been reworked, although it didn't run well. I had to improve the ignition system and the fuel system to get it to run well. The interior was still the original 1926 material. It was shot, looked horrible. It had been painted, and I'll give whoever painted this car credit. They did a really fine job. Otherwise, as far as maintaining it goes, while it was a very advanced piece of engineering for its day, by today's standards, is a very simple car to maintain. And the owner's manual that comes with it, it's a little booklet about yay thick. And in that owner's manual is everything you need to know to repair, to maintain, to lubricate, and keep this car in top form.
And you don't really have to be a mechanic or a big car buff guy to do all those things. It's like very, very well explained in there.
It is well explained. I mean, some mechanical ability is important, but you don't have to be a computer scientist like you do with modern cars, at least.
Cars like these and the enthusiasts, car enthusiasts like Mr. Richard, are the ones who are the true car lovers. Bringing these cars back from the history and restoring it to a level where it just becomes an eye candy is phenomenal. And I just really admire these kind of people, and I appreciate his time. Now, sir, I would like to you to tell me about the engine and what's inside this hood?
Sure, it's a 288 cubic inch straight inline six. That's probably, a little under 5 liters, I guess. It has we'll take a look at the engine, but it has an updraft carburetor. It's a 6-volt electrical system. Runs on a generator, of course, not an alternator. It can be hand cranked. There's a cover over the crank there. But luckily, I don't have to do that. It's pretty reliable. It might break your arm if you give it a try. One of the distinguishing characteristics, and I hope we get a chance to talk about this some, about Pierce Arrow, is that it was a company that was ahead of its time in terms of engineering, and they had an uncompromising dedication and commitment to quality. And for example, every component in that engine was hand weighed and balanced before it was assembled.
Really?
And it's useful to think about how special this car is by comparing it to other cars of that era. And so, for example, in some of the old Pierce Arrow literature, they said that it took 17 24-hour days to build one of these cars. So that works out to a level of 400 hours. Mm. By comparison, in 1926, Model T took about 6 hours to build. And to be fair, these were built by hand. Ford had, a moving assembly line and a lot of other industrial innovations, but nonetheless, 400 hours for this and 6 hours for that.
Isn't that probably the Rolls Royce of those times, I guess?
Well, Rolls Royce was around back in those days. Since you bring that up, I'll tell you that in the 20s, there were 3 brands of cars that were generally considered to be the luxury car, the rich man's car. They all started with a P. It was a Packard, Peerless, and a Pierce Arrow.
Yeah, Hewlett Packard. Yeah. See, hey, wow.
And the people who drove these cars were movie stars, they were tycoons, they were millionaires. The very first cars that were ever ordered for the White House, for the use of the White House.
Really?
2 of them were Pierce Arrows.
And what president at that time?
Was President Taft. William Howard.
Wow.
Prior to that, they didn't have the cars, but of course they wanted the best for the president. So, and another great comparison to make is that 1926, a Model T cost about $400.
Okay.
This car is about $3,500.
At that time, 1926, which converts to now what?
Well, that's almost 9 times the cost of a Model T. So if you tried to scale that up to modern prices, it'd be the difference between buying a $30,000 car and a $250,000 car.
What about, you were telling me, or I think I was reading somewhere that the Pierce Arrows had some models where these headlights, which are iconic headlights, which you can tell, if he's coming towards you, you can tell there's Pierce Arrow coming, if you're familiar with these lights. Some of them, those models have these molded from single piece, and some were welded. So which one?
This car, the headlight flares are a second piece that was in the manufacturing process. It was welded onto to the fender, and then of course machined out. It looks like one piece of metal, and that was, the most distinctive stylistic point of Pierce Arrows. If you see a car with these integrated headlight cowls in the fender, then you're looking at a Pierce Arrow. Not every Pierce Arrow had these, and in fact, even on this car, it was an option. You could, save some money by having the headlights in the traditional configuration.
Also, then this will be just a one plain fender,
right,
and nothing on top of it. That's interesting.
I suspect that very, very few were built, because if you had the money to buy this car, there was no point in cutting corners.
I mean, the thing is just same thing. You customize a car, you pay more. You can get every luxury into that. At least nowadays, the factory lists all kind of options. You get those, the price goes skyrocket. I believe at the same time, in those era of 1926, when people who were buying these cars were obviously, very wealthy, and I don't think they had any issue paying $500 more to put more beauty and more specs on this car. You were talking about that at that time, White House got these cars?
Yeah, the very first cars that the White House ever bought for the use of a president, they bought 4 cars, and 2 of them were Pierce Arrows.
Ah.
So I think that speaks to the status symbol that a Pierce Arrow was.
Okay, guys, nothing is complete without looking at the engine, which is the brain of the car, or the heart of the car. And this thing, I just can't wait for him to lift this treasure box cover to see what's inside. Mr. Richard, please show us what's inside this creature. Whoa. I have no clue, but that's why Mr. Richard is here to explain every bit of this. Please go ahead.
As we said before, it's an inline 6-cylinder. And we talked before, too, about how everything was meticulously balanced and put together. And because that's the case, you can see that the engine is bolted directly to the frame. It has no vibration dampening because it's not necessary. You'll see when we start this, it runs smooth as a sewing machine. You could set a glass of water on top of this handle.
Come on. This is what I think the Rolls-Royce is trying to do. That's what they claim, that even if you go on a speed bumps, the water won't even shake in a glass.
Right. It's on the other side, but it has updraft carburetor, has a generator that runs on a 6-volt system. This is the starter, of course.
Okay.
This is the oil fill. Interestingly, they didn't have a dipstick in these days. What you have here is there's a couple of valves that open a port one is high on the oil pan, one is low on the oil pan. And when you want to change the oil, you open the lower one, let all the oil drain out. And when you put new oil in, you close that, fill it up, and the upper valve is open, fill it up until it starts running out the upper valve, and then it's full.
Smart.
They included an oil can here. There's a specified lubrication schedule.
That's the one I think you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So you could carry that with you on the road, and if something started squeaking or it was time to lubricate a component, you could always do it. The car is very owner serviceable.
How heavy is this car, though?
It's about 3,500 pounds.
3,500 pounds.
Which is, as you can see, it's a big car for that age.
Yeah.
It has about a 12-foot wheelbase. And modern sedans, probably have a comparable weight, around 3,500 pounds.
I was just trying to say, because I have a Hummer H1, and I just love that military style. I mean, the civilian, made for civilians, but that is, I think, around 8,000 to 9,000 pounds, I guess.
Yeah.
But this looks like more, this is all steel, though. I think I can believe, this is all steel, I guess, right? Or what is it?
These body panels, the hood, the cowl here, they're made out of steel. However, the door skins and the rear of the cabin, they're all made out of aluminum.
I see.
It was unusual for car manufacturing.
And a little bit expensive, I would say. It's lightweight. That's the reason it's used in the aircraft industry and this one. But to use aluminum at that time, in that age and era, and that's why it explains why the price was so high, probably.
I'm sure that's a factor. And since you bring up aircraft production, one of the reasons that there are so few survivors of cars of this era, certainly in this condition, is that later on in World War II, there was all this scrap metal drive, and lots of junkyards were repurposed into tanks and ammunition and boats and airplanes and so forth. So, and along those lines, there's a lot of car clubs in the world. There's a Model A club and a Corvette club and, whatever. Pierce Arrow owners, we don't have a club. We have a society. There's an organization called the Pierce Arrow Society.
Well said.
And I think that most people who own Pierce Arrows probably are members of the society. I looked in their roster. They maintain a roster of all the known Pierce Arrows in the world. And of this particular car, there's 115 listed worldwide. Now, there's probably some other undiscovered ones out there that, aren't in the roster, but nonetheless, it gives you, a sense of just how rare these cars were.
Let's look at the other side, sir.
Sure.
What is on that side? Let's take a look.
Got the carburetor over here.
Okay. So that is just one single piece of, iron.
The head, it's a cast iron head and the cast iron engine block. Intake manifold, exhaust manifold. This is the air inlet for an updraft carburetor. Downdraft carburetors, of course, are much more efficient, but that was an innovation that hadn't yet come about. One downside to this is a vacuum tank that helps draw fuel out of the tank, the fuel tank, into the carburetor. And this is a shutoff valve for the fuel, which I have it in the off position now because if you leave this open, then gravity can draw fuel out of here and it can flood up in the carburetor and it just leaks on the floor. Yeah. So you usually shut it off when it's not in use.
Nice. And this is just, look at these guys. This is just a little bracket. So this partial hood sits on it so it won't scratch. There's a gap here in between.
Yep.
So that's also...
It's made out of brass. They were they paid a lot of attention to details. For example, look at these door handles here.
So these are all original door handles.
All original, yep.
And did it all came with the car, or you had to hunt for the parts later on?
There was a couple of odds and ends that I had to source, but mostly it was complete when I got it. That's the interior door handle.
That's also original.
All original.
That's interesting. Oh.
And
okay.
Consider this: these door frames are made out of wood.
Okay.
And then covered with this aluminum skin.
Wood underneath it?
It is.
Wow.
Yet, they were built to such exacting standards that look how this door closes. It's as solid as it can be. There's no play in it.
Yes.
I think in, mass-produced cars of this era, that the doors didn't work this well when they were brand new out of the factory, and this car is 98 years old.
It's amazing. Amazing engineering and precision. And look at this footrest, right? This is a footrest.
Footrest.
Again, guys, this was a limousine of that time, I would say, with luxury and style. And look at this. It looks like the couch in your living room. The back has so much space you can even sleep with your legs stretched out. We'll show you the interior in a better lighting right now. We are inside the garage, and the garage is gorgeous itself, but the light is inside of the car is a little bit dimmer. But we'll take it outside and show you more in detail the interior. But sir, so all these we talked about that, and you did the upholstery inside, or it was? I don't think it's an original upholstery, is it?
No, it is not. When I got the car, it had original upholstery, and it was very, very deteriorated. So this is newly done. It matches as close. I was able to find scraps of the original upholstery behind the interior door panels.
Sure.
And I was able to get a pretty close match with what was in there with this pattern.
Okay.
One other feature that is of interest, that kind of speaks to, sophistication, is that these are flower vases.
Flower vases?
Yeah.
Can you believe this?
You could put a flower in there, some water, and
perfect date car. Or going for prom or something.
Cut glass.
Seriously, and this is original?
It is.
This little piece from there?
It is.
I'm getting nervous, man. Don't drop it.
Yeah. But that was a 1920s version of an air freshener, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Can you please show our audience, if you can take a seat in the back? I would like to show them how spacious it is. And I would like to, see, look at that. And I would like to come in there too and see how much of the space it has in the back. Look at, guys. Look at this. It's like you are sitting in the back of a royal horse carriage or something.
Right.
That's how it looks like. I mean, this is insane. And this thing is for what?
It was just a grab rope.
Hold it. Okay. So same thing with this.
Same here, yep.
So look at this, guys. This is like a ponytail. You hold it when your car is kind of going through some rough areas.
Yep.
But this is interesting. I mean, this adds character versus putting a little handle. They could have put a steel handle up here. Yep. But look at that. Look at the artistic taste of the manufacturer or whoever designed this thing that, to put this rope in there. And this is original.
It's original. It's made out of silk, I believe.
Almost 100 years old rope. Can you believe this? This is too. man, the more you look into this and the more you find things, and that's the characteristic of a historic car. It just you cannot Lamborghini, Ferrari, McLaren, whatever you bring, this stands tight and strong in its place, and nothing can beat that with respect to the aesthetics and the design of that time. Okay, sir, let's just get out and see. Maybe we can take some shots of the back and look at that.
Sure.
Now, look at this thing. That's this footrest, I would say. What do you call this?
Running board.
Running board. I mean, it's so broad. You can literally sit down here and have a coffee or something, or even lay down and take a nap if you want. It's like almost a foot long, foot wide, and then I think maybe 6 foot long, I guess.
I'm sure many a passenger on an outing in this car had a picnic sitting on that.
Yeah, it's a little table.
Yep.
Perfect. Then let's talk about these gorgeous rims. These are original rims?
They are. It has wood spokes in the wheels. They're made out of hickory, I believe. And they had a different way of changing a tire on this car than what most people are accustomed to. So, for example, in a modern car, you would take out the lug nuts, pull the entire rim and tire off. On this one, you jack it up, and there's really 2 rims. There's this inner rim, which is red, and an outer rim, which is black. We can see the outer rim better on the spares. But we would take these nuts off all around.
Mm-hmm.
The studs remain in the outer rim, in the inner rim. The studs remain. And then when you pull these retainers off, you can pull this outer rim off of the inner rim, and then you just mount another tire, put the retainers back in place, and away you go. So the lug nut, the hub nut, is under this cover here. It's about knee big around. But the spokes and this inner rim, they stay on the car while you change.
And these tires are, what did you get?
6 by 22 is the size, and they have tubes inside them.
Okay. But these are original tires?
No, these are modern manufactured.
They were tube tires at that time, weren't they?
Oh, they were. Yeah, they were.
Okay.
These are Goodrich tires. They have a line of tires called Silvertown, which are made for these sorts of applications.
Amazing. And these tires look brand new.
They're in good shape.
Yeah, perfect. Well, this is amazing.
And because the roads, speaking of spares, because the roads were pretty rugged back in 1926, especially in New Mexico and Oklahoma, carried 2 spares.
2 spares.
You never know.
Yeah, and I always wonder, with all these modern cars have 1 spare, and exotics don't have any. I just saw one Ferrari one time I was trying to buy from Michigan, and I flew over there, and it had a spare in the frunk of that Ferrari. It was Ferrari 430, and I was surprised. But look at that. In those times, Mr. Richard is explaining that these are 2 tires, 2 spares, just because you never know. Now, you were also telling us a story about that these cars were more owned by American Indians.
Well, not in general, but Oklahoma was a very oil-rich part of the country, and it still is. But oil exploration and production in Oklahoma was very prominent in the 20s. And there were significant oil deposits on the Osage Indian Reservation. And so the big oil producers, they bought leases from the Osage people, and Osage became very affluent. They had a lot of spending money. And so they bought a lot of cars, and the Pierce Arrow was one of their favorites. And there's, by some estimates, I mean, I don't know how accurate this is, but some historians have said that there were more Pierce Arrows on the road in Osage County, Oklahoma, than there were in Erie County, New York, which is where these were built. And there's a movie that came out a couple of years ago called Killers of the Flower Moon, and it involves the oil business and the Osage tribe. And you can see in that movie, there are quite a few Pierce Arrows in the background. Okay. So they did a good job on that historical.
Beautiful story. Now, these are all original, I would say?
They are.
And these are, okay.
All original, yeah. probably need to have these re-chromed.
Okay. So pretty much everything on this car, as we see, is all original except maybe the tires you said and some.
The only other thing,
We'll see inside.
and the only other thing that's not original is that the original windshield wiper motor was vacuum driven, and of course, as they all do, vacuum motors like that, they don't live forever. Finding a replacement or parts to repair it, I just couldn't come up with it. So I did replace the wiper motors with electric motors. Other than that, 100% original.
Mr. Richard is outside. Somebody came on his front door to deliver something. Look at this. Look at this. I mean, I didn't want to be like greedy or something in front of him, but look at this thing, man. I don't even know what this thing is. F6 Ford. This thing is, I don't even know the name of. It's Ford also. And this thing, man, you have no idea what this thing is. It's Mach 1. But remember, we are behaving here because I'm just going crazy looking at these things. But before he comes, I mean, I'm going to show you a little quick.
What are you guys up to?
It's nothing. I mean, I was just here admiring your cars and just telling my audience that if it's okay with you later on, we would like to shoot these too, because all of these are worthy of an episode for themselves. I mean, I don't want to overload your senses. I'm going crazy myself, so I don't want to even, if it's okay with you later on,
Sure.
we can shoot these for our audience, and you can explain each and every, because all these cars are worthy of their own time and hour.
That's what classic cars are meant to do, is be shared.
Well, guys, we got the green light, so stay tuned for later, and we will bring you more goodies. Time has come to look at the interior of the car and just relive the history. Yes, sir. Please go ahead and explain to us what we are looking at.
All right, so we have this hickory wood steering wheel. It's kind of large. Of course, you have no power steering, so getting a little mechanical advantage on the steering box is a good thing.
It's all wood.
All wood, original wheel, horn button here in the middle. We have two levers on the steering wheel here. This one is for adjusting the idle speed of the carburetor.
Okay.
We didn't have automatic idles back in those days. And this is a timing adjustment. When you move this lever, it physically rotates the distributor cap. There's a linkage that goes down there.
Interesting.
It rotates the distributor cap to retard or advance the timing depending on, what kind of load's on the engine. So if you're going up a hill, you probably want to advance the timing. If you're going at higher speeds, you probably want to advance the timing. It probably runs smoother if you retard it a little bit at idle. There's a key, but functions a little differently than what we know today, because this key is really just a lock. It locks out the ignition switch. That's what this is here. So if we unlock the ignition, then we can turn the ignition
And that's
on.
the ignition.
So when that's on, then I can step on the foot button here to crank the engine.
Oh.
This one over here is the headlight switch, and it has, high and low positions, and also kind of ahead of its time for the 20s. And the instrumentation, you can see it had a clock. There's another lever down here where you can lean out or enrich the fuel mixture, depending on conditions, temperature and so forth. There's a primer knob, and I guarantee you, when I pull this primer out and step on the starter button, it starts first time every time. Doesn't matter how cold it is, when the last time it was started. It's just a very effective starting mechanism. This is a light that illuminates the instruments here. But notice the speedometer. It doesn't have a needle. It doesn't sweep like a normal speedometer. It's a dial that rotates, and it's on 0 now, but that'll rotate around and go up to, I don't know what it tops out at, something like 70 miles an hour.
Beautiful.
Odometer. And then over here we have an amp gauge and an oil pressure gauge.
What are these? What are these things?
These are the windshield wiper motors we talked about earlier, the electric motors. Right. Originally there was a vacuum operated motor there.
Okay.
But
and this is the original mirror? Or
it's not. The original mirror was really flaked up. I had a new one cut.
But it was a similar size, or
it was exactly
way like that?
Exactly the same.
Thick?
Yep.
Woody.
And that is the original bracket that held the mirror.
I would like you to please show this again to our audience. Guys, this is a flower vase. I mean, if you don't mind taking it out and show it to the camera up close. This is flower vase. It's like their version of car scent in those times, 1926, and it's original, and you just put roses or whatever and jasmine and then sit in the back it's pretty much like a horse carriage thing in there.
Certainly early vehicles were inspired by carriages. Carriage makers were the first car makers.
Yeah. Guys, you have seen the interior of the car, you've seen the engine, you've seen the backside, you have seen the rims. I mean, this thing it's like never ending. But time is short, so we will go take this car on the road and show you that in action.